Okay, battle stations, here we go. Welcome back, my friends. It's Anders. Today we're making a suffering bastard. In fact, we're making two suffering bastards. There's two ways that you can make this drink, and I'm gonna do both ways. But we're also gonna talk about the history of the drink and the man who made this, who created it. It's a great story, so stick around. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more sips, tips, and recipes, and let's go make the suffering bastard. To the bar. The suffering bastard. Here's a tale for you to tell your children. Let me get the microphone just so. I don't want you to miss a word of this story. So, this drink, the suffering bastard, was created in 1942 in Cairo, Egypt, specifically at a place called the Long Bar inside of the Shepherd's Hotel in Cairo, Egypt. It was created by a man named Joe Shalom. And let me tell you, Joe Shalom is a fantastical character. Well, was a fantastical character. This was during World War II. And at that time, the Long Bar was considered a public hub of sorts. So everybody that was anybody went there. British officers, press, dignitaries, celebrities, you name it. They all knew of the Long Bar. And all of those people knew of Joe, the bartender. In fact, that's what they called him, Joe the bartender. People didn't know his last name. He knew everything about everybody, but nobody knew that much about him other than he was a good bartender. The story about the drink goes like this. Joe was getting a lot of complaints from his patrons, who were British officers, that were complaining about hangovers they were getting because of bad booze. Now, Joe was the kind of guy that could get anything, so he got good booze, and he made this drink as a hangover cure. It's essentially a highball. It's like a Moscow Mule, but instead of the vodka, you've got two other base spirits. Anyway, it's a very simple drink, it's easy to drink, and they loved it. They ordered it by the gallon. So he called it the Suffering Bastard after the people that were complaining to him. They were the Suffering Bastards. He did briefly change the name because other people were complaining that the term bastard was too vulgar. So, for a brief moment in history, Joe called it the Suffering Bar Steward, which I kind of like, but it didn't last long. The name went back to Suffering Bastard, and that's the story of that cocktail for now. But I want to tell you a little bit more about Joe. Joe Shalom, the guy. He was born in Egypt. His father was Italian Jewish, his mother was Russian Jewish, and he spoke 8 different languages. On top of that, before he ever even thought about bartending, he went to study to become a pharmacist in France, and then he became a chemist in Sudan, and then decided he wanted to be a bartender because he wanted to make people happy. At least that's what I read. I like that. But he was an incredible bartender. Everybody loved him. It's said that he could get you anything. If you needed a flight out of the country, he could do it. He knew everybody. He had all the connections. He remembered everybody's face, everybody's name. He remembered the drink that they drank. And he knew any secrets that they would be willing to share with him. What's really fascinating here is people didn't really know anything about him other than his first name, Joe. His story gets even more interesting in the 1950s because he gets arrested under suspicion of espionage and gets exiled from Egypt. Luckily, he had met the owner of the Hilton hotels, Mr. Hilton. And Mr. Hilton said, Joe, I want you to go to Puerto Rico to open a bar at my hotel over there. So when he got kicked out of Egypt, he just went to Puerto Rico and he opened up a bar there. And then soon thereafter, went to Havana, Cuba to open another Hilton bar there in Cuba. But that didn't last long either, because then you had Castro's revolution and he gets exiled again. So he's already been kicked out of 2 countries, and he goes on to tend bar in New York, Paris, London. He was in Johannesburg, in Istanbul. He was all around the globe, making suffering bastards everywhere. I just think his story is epic. Now, back to the drink. The Suffering Bastard had its own journey, because in the 1960s, Trader Vic of tiki fame decided to start making suffering bastards, but he completely changed the recipe. He bastardized the bastard. The drink itself was more or less a Mai Tai with a cucumber slice in it. I prefer Joe's. So that's what we're making today. Whew. So That's the story. I had to share it. It's an incredible story. At first I thought I will just touch on it, but the more I kept digging in on this man's life, the more I was like, wait, what? And he lived into his 90s. What a life. So now the booze. Quick reminder, we are making this 2 ways. So to make the Suffering Bastard, we will need gin, cognac, or bourbon, bitters, lime juice, rich demerara syrup, ginger beer, mint, and an orange. Just those few things. All right, the build on this is essentially that of a buck or a mule. Our base here is gonna be 2 spirits, so we have gin and cognac, or brandy, or gin and bourbon. Early on, I believe Joe was altering the recipe. Both versions are acceptable. Now, the thing is, if we were to use all 3 of these, then we've got a dying bastard. And if we were to use all 3 of these plus rum, then we have a dead bastard. Lime juice, freshly squeezed. I like to balance it out with a rich demerara syrup, 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. If you can't find demerara or you just don't want to make it, then as always, I recommend Liber & Company as a store-bought option. They make a demerara gum syrup, which has a really nice texture, but they've got a whole lineup of syrups to choose from, so I'll leave a link down below. As always, if you need to pick up these bottles, check out my collection on Curiata. I am happy to say that they now have Maison Rouge VSOP available. It's been, since I started working with them, it's been that long since I've been waiting for them to get it, and they got it. The collection is always growing, so check it out. I'll also leave a link for that down below. All right, good, great, let's build. All right, so here we go. We're gonna make these at the same time. Let's start with the gin. 1 ounce of gin, so I'm just gonna do 1 ounce over here too. Then 1 ounce of cognac, or 1 ounce of bourbon, 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lime juice, 1/4 of an ounce of the rich demerara syrup, and 2 to 3 dashes of Angostura bitters. I'm doubling up because, as always, we got the little tiny dasher bottle. All right, good, excellent. Save the ginger beer, we're not gonna shake that up with it. So now we can add ice and shake. No need to shake these for too long because we're gonna pour this over ice as well as add ginger beer. So 5 to 10 seconds tops. You can serve this in whatever vessel you want. I'm gonna do a Collins glass, but you could do a low ball, you could do a tiki glass, whatever you think is appropriate. Open your ginger beer. Gently pour these together. It's gonna be about 3 ounces of the ginger beer. Kind of depends on the size of your glass. Save a little room for garnish. So that was cognac, here is the bourbon. We'll do that again. Traditional garnish here is a sprig of mint. I always like a good size sprig of mint because I can't smell for Give it a smack, wake it up, drop those in. Let's add a little orange. This is optional. There's no other orange component in the drink, so I don't really know why we're adding the orange, but it's pretty traditional for this drink. Do I want to set that in? Maybe like, that works. Whatever looks good, just make it look pretty. If you want, you can top it off with a little extra ginger beer. Grab some straws, and there we have the Suffering Bastard, 2 ways. Cheers, everyone. I'm going to start with the cognac version. Yeah, it's really nice. First of all, cognac, I would say almost as much, if not more than any other spirit, works well with other base spirits. So you get a nice fruitiness, and I still get the gin and the spiciness from the ginger beer. Now, the bourbon version. Yeah, I really like this one, but I like it for a different reason. What I love about the cognac version is the cognac really plays well with the gin. The bourbon version plays really well with the ginger beer. A lot comes down to the ginger beer that you're using because some are really spicy and some are not so spicy. So pick one that you like. I'm gonna be completely straightforward and honest. I'm not blown away by either of these cocktails. I think they're good. I think they're balanced. I think they're refreshing. Is it my all-time favorite cocktail? No, probably not. But the story alone is worth making the drink. I think that's all I have to say for this episode, folks. Suffering Bastard, 2 Suffering Bastards. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this film and the story about Joe. So let me know in the comments down below which Suffering Bastard you prefer. And I'll see you next time. Grab your merch, sign up for the newsletter. Till then, cheers.